It has been too long.
I know it's been 2 weeks, 2-ish.
Yep. A lot has happened in 2 weeks. And it's funny because like the episode that is literally airing right now, or maybe just wrapping up airing right now, was like over a month ago that we recorded it. And I'm watching it and I'm like, man, so much has changed in like a single 28-day month.
Dude, February being 28 days is insane. It just happens and it's just over. And then you're like, I guess it's March now.
I mean, it would be one thing if every month was 28 days. Like that would make sense. 7 days a week, 4 weeks a month. Like let's standardize this shit, but it's not.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this is stupid.
Mm-hmm.
This is stupid. What a dumb month.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same, man. It's just magically over and you're like, okay, I guess that happened. So yeah. So how you doing, man? It has been. We for those listening, we were recording every week and we had a tremendous backlog and then we got busy and then I was on vacation and now we're kind of current again.
Kind of. Yeah. Current enough anyways. Probably as current as we'll ever be.
Yeah, we're always way ahead on recording, but right now we're not. We're just kind of where we need to be to put out episodes.
Well, we did an episode. We did an episode called Failing Gracefully. And I decided that it turned into what I felt was just me having like a live action therapy session and just kind of being like, it just was like, it didn't help anyone. And I listened to it and I was like, I couldn't even get all the way through. I was like, nah, this is not right. And since then some stuff has changed and I was just like, we need to start all over. If we're going to tackle that one, we need to be more upbeat about it. Otherwise, it's just the Failing Gracefully is an easy downer episode, and I don't really want to do that. At least not right now. Let's get a ways out there before we bring everybody down.
Yeah, it's like it'll just be known as the lost episode, and also we recorded it crazy early. Even for me, like I'm kind of a morning person, but I think we started recording that episode before 6 a.m. my time. Like I think we were recording at like 5:30 or 5:45. And
it was really early even for me. And I was like, yeah, let's not do that. Like right now it's still early, but at least I've had 3 cups of tea in me right now. Like, I'm ready to do this.
We were in the zombie state during that episode. We were just zombie early morning ranting about stuff. And like some of it was really good. And some of it was like, why have we been talking about this for 15 minutes?
Well, I remember looking at the clock while we were recording it and being like, fuck, we have only talked for 45 minutes and I don't know if I can keep on going. And then it just went downhill. And then it was just like too personal, too weird. I started calling names, throwing elbows. It was just like Grumpy Heath, just like going through a mosh pit. It was not my most graceful moment. So we'll tackle it when we're more awake.
Yeah, it's the lost episode.
Maybe have some notes or maybe combine it with something else. I mean, I've got a couple episodes that I can't say would be great single episodes, but would be maybe good combined topics.
Yeah.
And none of them are super fun, unfortunately. There's too much about the content creation space that we can be positive and we can try to motivate people, but there's like too much actual real life bullshit that gets in the way.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people talk about that. And it requires a delicate hand, but a firm hand at the same time. Like it needs to be done, I think, for the right reasons instead of just me reacting and, and us trying to fill a 2-hour time slot, and maybe we do an hour-long episode. Who knows? Maybe that's the thing. Who knows?
It's possible. I mean, we actually talked about that. I think in the early conceptualization of the shows, there was a lot of discussion about how long the episodes should be and if we can make the episodes an hour long so it's digestible. And then we've kind of just been doing the 2-hour episodes. So it's possible.
I like 2-hour episodes personally. I listen. That's the type of podcast I listen to. It's not that I won't give an hour-long podcast a chance, but like it always felt like in like WTF or something like that, like Mark Maron would just be getting into the shit when he would be like, okay, well, we're done. And I'm like, oh man. Like, so one of my favorite singers died this week. Mark Lanigan. He was the lead singer from the Screaming Trees in the '90s. A lot, kind of one of those like musicians bands. Like everybody who was a musician in the Northwest scene really respected the Screaming Trees, but they never hit the like fame that they should have. And like, Screaming Trees were like super important because like Josh Homme, after Caius broke up, was in Screaming Trees as their second guitar player. Like, Joshua Homme is Queens of the Stone Age, went on to do, like all sorts of really big, important musical movements, of which Mark Lanigan was a backup singer in Queens of the Stone Age and a songwriter. So like songs like Hanging Tree on Songs for the Deaf, that opening track on Lullabies to Paralyze with that like dark, really gritty voice that everybody likes to say sounds like Tom Waits, but it's not Tom Waits. He's like, Tom Waits is more of like a cartoon character singing. Mark Lanigan's like a glass of whiskey and a cigarette that's about ready to go out. Like he's really heavy and really depressing. And when he died this week, I was like, I was messed up. Like it was great going back to listen to his catalog, even though I don't love all of it. But man, I am going to miss him. And I'm so sorry that I never got a chance to see him. But even his WTF interview, like, it was like 45 minutes long because he didn't want to talk. And right as they were getting to the point where Mark Lanigan was opening up, like Mark Maron shut it down. And I was like, oh, that's so sad. It's so sad. I just want to know more about this guy now. Like,
yeah,
this is such a tragic artist.
Yeah, it's very interesting trying to like figure out, the perfect length podcast, because I don't think there's like an answer. Like, I guess it depends on the topic and the hosts, and there's so many factors. But maybe,
well, what we did find out is there was a perfect length of Instagram reel to like hit a whole new audience. Like, turns out that like 55 seconds. Bingo.
Bingo, bongo. Yeah, actually, let's see how that reel did. I need to make more reels. I think I do enjoy the reel aspect of podcasting. I think that there's something special to it because I mean, we talked a little bit about the episode that's out today. We talked a little bit on there, but I like short form content. And I think the short form mixed with podcasting is very interesting because you just pull clips out of a full length and make them into short form content. You just have to edit it cleverly. And I think there's a lot of potential there. I think that's something that we could keep looking into. And I just have to keep kind of combing our episodes and making notes and cutting little clips out and editing them up and everything. But it's actually fun, man. It's a fun way to like keep, short initial burst interest in a larger picture. And I think that's
for sure.
That feels like there's a combination of stuff to that,
Well, I like how like you had it so like it would change cameras depending on who was talking. Like you did a great job with it, and like I'm glad that you get into that because like mentally my brain is just like I don't got it in me right now to do that. In fact, like I'm actually nervous that there was a bathroom break in the middle of this last episode that I just left in, and I don't know. Like it might have been the one before that, like the one that we will never air. Like one of these, there's a bathroom break that I just haven't found yet.
It's the last episode. It's the last one. Okay. It's the last episode. The last episode I think is cursed. I think that it was there is an episode of this podcast that only me and you know exists. Well, other people now know, but only me and you have heard it. But there's a lost episode and it was partially cursed. I think that there is something to that.
Yeah.
I
think I'm at the point now where like I could probably mentally wrap my head around, a cursed episode and fixing a cursed episode. I've just had like a real roller coaster of a week. Like not to like totally like take over and run with this, but like with all the stuff outside the podcast and the bullshit happening online, to like me trying to like not really interact with it, like mentally I'm not built to just sit and be quiet. Like I want to say
Yeah.
things, I want to be out there, and that's like a really bad place to be in content creation. And it's something that like nobody wants to listen to somebody start a fucking fight online, because as much as we would love it, our fans actually don't give a shit. Like there is nobody's picking sides, and like that's one thing that like if out of all the stuff that I could come out of failing gracefully in to sum it up, chill the fuck out, adjust your emotions. Nobody gives a fuck. Like nobody cares. Like it, and you could have a very, very public total everything falls apart, and like 99% of your fans who love you and want you to be doing stuff didn't even see it happen. They're just like thrilled that you're still around. So like every day's a new day. Embrace it, fucking run at it, fail gracefully. It's awesome. That's this how I'm going to sum up the last episode. No, like nobody cares. Don't worry about it. Move on. Fix yourself. Get ready. It's all good.
Yeah, it could have been a 15-minute episode, and we turned it into a we turned it into a 2-hour sleep-deprived coffee rant. Just not enough sleep, way too much caffeine, talking for way too long. It'd be interesting to comb that episode and see if there's like any good short form clips we could pull out, or even bloopers or whatever. Because it was different. It was definitely an experiment. Like there was like a disclaimer at the beginning that we're like, we're both really tired, and then there was a disclaimer at the end, and we're like, we're both still really tired. It was quite the episode. So the last episode, it exists.
Yeah. So you've had a hell of a week and a half or 2 weeks. Like you disappeared to another country for a little bit, and I'm so fucking envious. Please enlighten me with your wonderful son stories and everything, because we haven't talked about it since you've been back. It's just been so crazy. Like I have no idea how your trip went.
So, yeah, okay. So I did disappear to another country, but not in a sense that I was fleeing. I wasn't like evading the law or anything like that. I went on vacation. So, we went to one of my wife's good friends was getting married in Mexico. So we went to that. It was in Cancun at a very nice resort. But I will say there was a ton of white people problems. I had a lot of white people. It was white people problems left and right. So I would say I would sum up my whole week with it was white people problems. But it was, but it was fun. I mean, and that's like, it's fun to travel with my wife. Like she loves to travel. That's her passion. That's like her favorite thing to do. I hate to travel because I am allergic to every food. And so traveling for me is a nightmare. So, and it was, I would say traveling with celiacs is interesting because sometimes it goes great and sometimes it doesn't. And this was a trip where it didn't really go great, which was kind of a bummer. But it was like, so we stayed at this really nice resort, right? So we check in and we had booked a king with an ocean view, sick room. We get there and they're like, hey, we have a room for you. It just doesn't have a king bed. And it's like, I should have known then, man. I should have known 5 minutes into the trip. I should have been like, what the fuck is about to happen at this resort? And the thing about having a king bed is it doesn't really matter unless you are 6'2" or taller, because a queen bed, your feet just hang off of. You're just too tall. And so anyways, so
are you 6'2"? Are you tall?
Yeah, I'm tall.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I only see you sitting down, and every once in a while I get like a glimpse of your gams and your short shorts. Like, but it's hard to tell whether or not you're tall or not.
See, watch. See? Are you ready to see how tall?
Yeah, that's tall. That's a midsection. I like that.
So
it's great podcast content, like the listeners are like, what did he just do? I was like, it was a helicopter. He came at me with a helicopter.
So okay, so we get there and it's good. It's a beautiful resort. I mean, we got to chill in cabanas on the beach, it was really cool. But then like 2 days before the end of it, started having food problems. I eat and it's like, this is not gluten free as advertised. And like,
Mhm.
they don't understand food allergies at this resort, to put it very bluntly. Like, just straight up, Dreams Resort in Mexico, you don't know anything about food allergies. They have dishes labeled as vegan that have cheese in it. And it's like, that's what are you doing? I was like, that's not, what is this? Like, why even spend the time to list food allergens if you're just completely
Not
unaware
going to
of
do
them? Yeah,
it.
it's like, this
Yeah.
is a vegan salad with cheese. And you're like, nope, those two things don't exist on the same
Yeah.
spectrum.
Yeah, and it's
S
not vegan cheese. This is something else.
Yeah. So I had some white people problems there. And then we went to Vail the next day. So we get home from Mexico, 80
So you
degrees.
go from hot to fucking cold, like bam,
And
bam.
even for Colorado, cold. Like, even for
Ugh,
Colorado, a very brutal
ugh.
cold snap. So we went from 80 degrees to -2 the next day. And it was a big swing. And so we're in Vail, very cool little Airbnb, nice spot right next to a bus stop. Literally most uncomfortable bed on the planet, more white people problems. And so it
Oh,
was just like, it was a fun week. It's always fun to get out and travel with my wife. I enjoy it quite a bit, despite some of my uncomfortabilities with traveling. It's nice to have somebody who like pushes me out of my comfort zone, because if it was up to me, I would just never leave my house. I would order food, I would make my own groceries, like, you know what I mean? Or I guess I would order
yeah.
groceries and make my own food, you know what I mean? And so then
Yeah,
I
no, I
would
follow you.
that's it. That's all I would do. I would leave the house to go play Space Dolls with the boys on Tuesday nights, and that would probably be my life. And so thank God she's around to push me out of my comfort bubble. But yeah, it was good. It was a nice, relaxing week off. I haven't had like a week off of work in months. So it's nice to actually be able to unwind and decompress a bit and spend some time away. So it was good. It was good. I'm
Good.
back. I wasn't kidnapped. I didn't flee the government or the law. I went there willingly.
I love like the Riviera Maya as far as like a place. The fact that they have like Mayan like ruins like all over is amazing. And it's something that like we forget about in this country, that like we don't have shit, and we like completely erase the indigenous people's culture off the planet. So it's like we don't even have the like remnants of it, because our plains Native Americans lived very different lives, very temporary lives as far as like structures and things go. um and then you would have things like in Cahokia, which is just right across the river from me. And Cahokia is a Native American word. I'm sure we are probably butchering it by like just don't know how to pronounce it right. But we have all these like huge burial mounds there, or just mounds. We're not exactly sure what they're totally for. But there was this huge fort there that the indigenous people built like a whole trading route through there. It was a bustling city of like, I want to say they said like 1.4 million Native Americans or something. It was huge.
Damn.
It's fucking gone. It's gone.
That
Like,
is
we
crazy.
got rid of it because we took over. Like, that's what we did. And so like we conquered this land, but in conquering America, we lost so much like rich, amazing history and understanding of how to like safely like grow crops on the land. Like, we think about the Dust Bowl and shit like that. If we would have actually listened to the Native Americans that were here, we probably never would have had issues with like ripping up all the sod and like complete and total drought. Like we would have had a very different late 1800s, early 1900s in this country. But the fucking hubris is just like, oh no, this is ours now.
Yeah.
This is ours. And it makes me really sad. So I love Mexico. I wish it was easier for me to be there. I wish I had like didn't sunburn as much. I wish I knew the language better so I could like get off the beaten path more. 'Cause I really want to explore, but I took Japanese in high school because I'm a fucking idiot. I should have taken Spanish because we had a huge migrant population in Oregon. It would have done me great. I should have done it, but my passion is with Eastern cultures, or I guess Western far Western cultures of Japanese. I think that they have a fascinating history, and I'll never not want to go there.
Okay, here's the tangent time.
Tangent, let's do it.
Mayans. Did they disappear, or did Martians take them back with them?
I think the actual theory is that we bred them out. Like,
really?
Because what happened was, like, I think the Aztecs were much more fuck you, we're gonna fight. And I think the Mayans, because, like, if I understand right, Aztec are more central, Mayans are more coastal and south. And so when fucking Columbus and that, like, all of those early conquistadors hit, like, the Mayans couldn't even, as far as like it's been written, the Mayans couldn't even understand what they were seeing. They might as well have been seeing aliens. And so,
really?
because, like, what is this fucking boat? What are these people in this armor? Like, it just, like, didn't translate to them. And we instantly went after their religion, and so we converted them all to Catholicism. So we burnt down all of their churches. We got rid of all of their written writing. It's fucking gone. We wrote, like, they had books. They had a huge, vast library of knowledge that during the conquistadors, they just erased them because you needed to matriculate to their society, or you needed to like, be dead. And there's a thought process on the Mayans that, like, there used to be big forests all across South America, and to make all the concrete, because that was, like, kind of the thing that they did that nobody else was doing. It's like, if you go to, like, Chichen Itza and stuff like that, you can see, like, their ruins that they had, like, smooth concrete everywhere. Like, they made that, but that they, like, burnt down their entire forest. And I think, like, a couple years of drought and famine hit, and it killed off a lot of them. So by the time the conquistadors showed up from Spain, like, that was it. Like, fucking game over. So, like, the history is one of those that, like, yeah, we could totally romance aliens, but I think that the actual story is so much more sad and intense.
Yeah, not always seems to be the case. It's just like, yeah, somebody came up from Europe and fucked everything up. I don't know tons about them. I just remember, like, I used to watch a lot of Ancient Aliens in college.
Sure.
And back when that show was in the heyday, and people were like, holy shit. Like, when that show was, like, eye-opening content. And there was a lot
it's still got a lot of really valid points about how the fuck did they do this stuff without any modern science. Like, it's pretty brilliant.
Yeah, there was a lot.
I don't know if it's totally aliens.
There was a lot of, like, segments about the Mayans and weird little, like, oh yeah, and this one small minor detail about, the Mayans and their math, and they knew all this stuff about the stars, and it's like, what are you talking about? That's a huge detail. Like, they knew all sorts of crazy shit. And yeah, there's, like, nothing left. It's insane.
When you have nothing to do but, like, live and look at the sky and, like, right, like, they were not the brutal savages that everybody likes to think of, even though they had some really barbaric practices. Like, they did have some human sacrifice stuff. I believe that was the Mayans. That everybody's just like, oh, that's horrible. Like, it was tied into their religion and culture. It was like an extreme honor to be a part of it. So yeah, it's not like it's brutal to, like, Western society, but for them it's not like Temple of Doom. It's something that was, like, actually important to their culture. And so, like, if you look at, like, Chichen Itza from a certain angle, like at certain parts of the like solar eclipse or angles of like the year, like just the like ridges going up to the pyramid, the ziggurat, when the sun hits it and it casts a shadow, it's a snake. Like
What?
straight up, like they did all sorts of weird shit like that where you're like, how did they know? And it's just because they like had time. Same with like the Druids in the Anglo, European history. They had time to think about it and to look at it and to actually ask questions, and they were unafraid of, like they could marry religion and science where
Hmm.
Catholicism could not. Like this book is it, and so we've lost so much actual cool history and knowledge because you know, reasons.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely want to know more. We should do an ancient aliens episode
I would love to.
where
I
we
would love
just
to.
where we just both independently gather ancient alien facts and see if we can blow each other's mind. That's the goal.
I
Whoever PogChamp faces the most loses.
my dad is he got really into ancient aliens, and he called me up one day, and because like I'm an atheist, I don't believe in an afterlife. I don't love the idea of a deity that knew everything that was going to happen and yet let all the bad happen anyway. I just find that to be rather insulting. Just search for the meaning in life, and I'm like, yeah, like that sucks. That's a shitty idea, and I reject that. um and he was like, did you know that there are symbols that pop up in all these petroglyphs and hieroglyphs that are of what people think are aliens, all across like a certain like latitude line, even in like small islands that nobody had gone to. And they think that, that like they talk about like this burning star in the sky, and so like I guess all like the Christian scientists or something think that alien was actually angels. And if you watch the new show Midnight Mass on Netflix, which is about a vampire coming to a really tiny like coastal island off of like the coast of New York, it's fucking great. um they kind of deal with that same sort of thing, because like the priest thinks that it's an angel because everybody, like in the Bible, they talk about like anytime somebody saw an angel for the first time, they were afraid, they were terrified. And so when he saw this fucking vampire, this Nosferatu, he was like, oh my God, this is an angel, because I am scared shitless. And like nothing like this exists on Earth. And God gave us the Earth and it's fine. Turns out it's a vampire, and they all go bloodlust crazy. Great time. Really fun show. Like it
Hmm.
starts off slow, but the end payoff, totally worth
Worth it.
it.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Man, dude, I love our just absolute rants about random shit before we even get anywhere even remotely near the topic. So anyways, long story short, I'm good, man. It's been a crazy couple weeks. How are you?
Uh, I'm doing much better. I've kind of come out of my funk. I'm feeling more motivated and like mentally clear than I have in a while. I still don't know if I have my job. I've now had 3 interviews, and they haven't told me no. So I'm like at this point where I'm like, they would have at least told me no. And so I'm still very optimistic that I'm getting the job, but I'm starting to get offers from other people. While none of them are as good as this one, I'm also in the zone of like I could be doing other things instead of waiting for
Sure.
this one.
Yeah.
So it's starting to fuck with me a little bit. But so like as you can see, I'm wearing my WGU hoodie right now. For any of you audio listeners, I'm wearing one of those hoodies. It's the big blanket hoodies. Um, it's amazing, and I love it. It's comfortable, and I've wore basically nothing but this for like the last 2 weeks of my life, because it's been cold, and it's like great to like stay nice and warm. Although we're having a beautiful week this week.
Yeah.
But this Monday I went to a WGU event where like the president of the school was there, and he was in town meeting with a bunch of different corporations. So they did a big meet and greet for the students here, of which like they didn't do a great job advertising. So there wasn't a lot of students, but there was a shitload of politicians and like lobbyists and
Okay.
like people who worked there. And so Mal and I went and like rubbed elbows with a bunch of like the administration of the school, and it was really interesting, really cool. Got a bunch of really great stats that I didn't know. It's right
Hmm.
now currently the biggest school in the United States. It's got 126,000 people enrolled at the moment.
Damn.
It's huge.
That's bigger
And they're
than
like,
like cities. That's like multiple cities just showing up
yeah.
to school together.
And it's because they don't have a campus, so everything's
Yeah.
online. But they graduate more people than like state schools. They like the state average is 40% of the people who go to college graduate from college, which is
Damn.
just like sad. Just think you
Yeah.
got that far in debt and you didn't even get a fucking degree to show for it. Like it's awful. And so they were talking about that, and they're like hinting to things. And so like Mal and I were just having all this fun. Like we really got into it with a lobbyist talking about Google and YouTube and the fucking proliferation of information. And like it's awesome having real adult conversations with somebody who isn't your wife. Like it fucking feels great. It was
Yeah.
energizing. We both left like totally charged. The next day, they announced that WGU had partnered with McDonald's and Amazon to like anybody going to the working there can get free education through WGU. And I was just like, that is huge. And you're like
Huge.
free or greatly discounted. So I think that like
Yeah.
some of the things like nursing is a little bit more expensive. Computer programming has a bunch of like really expensive certifications that you have to get into, so I think those probably cost a little bit more. The master's program probably costs a little bit more, but like you can be a $15 an hour minimum waged employee in those companies and get free college. And I was just like, that is massive. And
Yeah.
it's so good to think that this school is like, we need to educate our masses. You guys need to support your employees. Let's partner together and do this. And I'm just like, it's fucking great. I love it. I love the fact that like, it comes from like a sad need, but to see companies actually stepping up to the plate and like the school going after it too, because like state schools aren't going to do that shit. They aren't actively looking to they're like, we have like a cap of what we want, of what we can handle, and WGU doesn't have that cap. They have
Yeah.
nothing up. Like since they have no campus, they can just fill it up. And so I thought that was really cool, and it left me like just amped about life. Yeah, it's not the ideal situation, but like I love when the underdog gets a chance. And that's what it feels like. The underdog got a chance, and I love it.
Yeah, and that's like, I mean, that's just capitalism economics 101, right? Like schools, physical institutions can only house so many people, so it like reduces the amount of supply, whereas like the population of the world increases, so demand is increasing, but supply is capped at these places, so prices skyrocket and the product doesn't change at all. And
Yeah.
versus like a company that's focused on like virtual base, like they have no cap, and so they're able to produce a product and give it education that's based on quality instead of just being forced into like a hole and being like, well, we have this amount of resources available and this amount of seats available, and
Yeah.
because price goes up for those seats, it like doesn't necessarily translate to a like a quality increase, right? So it's
Right,
super interesting.
exactly. I
That's
mean,
cool.
you're for a regular degree through there per year, you're at less than $8,000 a month. So like a business degree is less than 8 grand a year. Where like the average regular school is like 10 grand per semester per
Yeah.
term. And so like it's more than half as inexpensive. Like that's amazing to be able to be like, even like on my own, like I'm paying for school out of my own pocket, and that's something. While I can't do it for forever without a job, like part of the reason why I need this job, um, it's something that I never would have been able to even remotely consider in a regular school. So like I don't know, man, like shit like that gets me amped. Like it made me feel like, oh hell yeah, like I'm part of something bigger and better. Because sometimes it's hard to stay focused and motivated on school, especially like me right now not having like a schedule. Like am sometimes in just absolute emotional weeds. And so like going to that was really good. I met with one of the marketing people there. She wants to come on her podcast, and like I think that would be really interesting, talking to somebody who's actively trying to develop new things to get people's attention, especially in a podcast like ours. I think that we can have a lot of fun. She's just like a fucking riot, like totally. She'll tell you when something's really wrong, for better or for worse, and I loved it. I love listening to her talk. So we got to get her on. We got to start figuring out that aspect of the podcast one of these days.
Yeah. Okay, so quick story time about marketing. Yeah. So my gaming club meets on Tuesday nights. Usually afterwards, we go to the bar for a drink or two, and we hang out there. For this last Tuesday, way too long. We were at the bar for like 3 hours. So I got home at like midnight. So we're sitting there wrapping up, and I hang out with some dudes who are just a riot. Like, these guys are some of the funniest guys I've ever met. And it's so fun to just sit there, because it's not even really like we're drinking. I think I sat at this bar for like 3 hours and had 2 drinks the whole time, just sitting there, just chilling, talking. And so it's Fat Tuesday. Everyone is ham boned there. And this guy walks up to our table, this very, very drunk guy. And we're sitting there, we're talking, and he walks up, and we all just stop and look at him. And he reaches into his pocket, and we're like, oh shit, where is this going? And he pulls out a whole bunch of like cardboard cards, like little business cards, and starts passing them around the table. And he goes, I am a marketing genius. And then we're just staring at him. And then we've now had these cards distributed around the table, and we look at them, and literally it just says, yay meat, with a QR code. And I am thinking, this is either a meat website or I'm about to see a dick. And
yeah, of course.
So we scan it, and it was an actual meat website. But this guy's thing, he was just like, oh yeah. And he's like just this drunk old boomer who's like, I'm a genius because I use QR codes and I make ambiguous stuff that makes people curious. And he's like, I put a QR code on the side of my truck, and people just walk up to it while I'm sitting at a stoplight and scan it, and just instantly they're on my website. And I'm like, that is bizarre. Like, what are you talking about?
What is this, 2008?
This guy's all about it. We heard his sales pitch for a while. Next thing I knew, he just left the table. He was just in the middle of a story, and he just left the bar. Just stood up and left. And so that was the yay meat guy. But yeah.
Awesome.
It would be hilarious to get him at a table with the marketing person from your college and just watch them go out. And he'd be like, QR codes are the future. And in some ways, it would
be so funny.
Yeah, in some ways, I think that they are. They're actually an incredible resource. But like, this guy was way too into it. He's like, I am literally a genius at marketing because of QR codes. It's like, okay, dude.
I mean, like, I think that like guerrilla QR coding stuff is really funny, but like, there's been so many things, back in the day that would take you to like, websites that were like predatory and stuff. So like, I am always very skeptical to scan a QR code unless I know where it's from. Like I just got this. Do you know who Chris Ramsey is?
That sounds so familiar.
He's a magician who solves puzzles on YouTube.
Yeah.
And he's got, I think now over 1 million followers and stuff. He just did a escape room in a box. It was like $40. And so like, he's like, I bought it, and it comes with like his like custom deck of cards that you can only get in the escape room. And then like some tools to solve this digital escape room, of which you scan a QR code and you go at it. And I was just like, okay, this is cool. Like, and eventually I'll solve it, but like I'm more just like I like supporting somebody who's doing something very weird, but like that's the only time I'm like, oh yeah, a QR code. There, I got it.
So if a drunk guy walks up to you at a bar and hands you a business card that just says "Yay Meat" with the QR code, do you scan it?
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, yes. Mainly because I'm hoping it's a dick.
I think that's what everybody's kind of secretly hoping for is like, and then that way you can be like, come
You
on,
got
man,
me. You
come
got me. He
on.
hit me
Yeah.
with a cat brains.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
no.
yeah, we all scanned it too. So maybe he actually is a genius at marketing. I don't know.
Well, if he got sales out of showing you his meat.
We didn't
Yeah,
order any
he
meat.
is.
We didn't order any. It's a bizarre website, man. It's very like one of the packages of meat is $1,000, but it's so much meat that it comes with a free meat freezer. He delivers a meat freezer to you full of meat, and I'm like, what fucking planet do you live on where you're like, this guy has the exact product I need. I've been looking for meat to be delivered in a freezer, ready to rumble.
Dude, I mean, like, I'm not gonna lie. I have bought meat from people driving around with like coolers in the back of their truck, and they're selling steaks for like, $6 a steak, and they're like, my
Yeah.
freezer broke, so like we got to get rid of all these steaks. I'm like, bring them in here. Like, I have most certainly done that, and I've never got food poisoning. I don't think that they've always been like the highest quality food, but like also I'm not a big meat guy, and so like every once in a while, if I can get it like cheap, I'll do it. But like, why spend a lot of money on a piece of meat that I'm accidentally going to overcook and I'm going to be pretty disappointed in it? Like I might as well like get like shitty meat and not feel bad about the loss of like quality there.
Well, this guy's meat comes with a freezer. You buy so much meat that
Freezer.
he brings you the freezer also. Just leaves it with you.
Awesome.
He's like, this is so much meat that you now have to own this freezer to keep track of it.
At that point he probably set you up with like a monthly like restock program too, so he'll come in and like fill that freezer back up. Like it's a good, I mean, like that one of my friends does that here with like a local place called Max, and he like totally gets loaded up with like, I think he spends like $160 a month on meat, and like they eat it up and they love it, and I'm like, I would rather have salads, thank you. I'm
Yeah.
already too fat and can't poop on the way I want to just only eat meat all the time.
Oh, that is relatable. If you're watching, if you're watching this on YouTube, you should comment below if you would have scanned the Yay Meat QR code or not. Let us know. I think it's basically a unanimous yes across the board. So maybe maybe I actually did meet the best marketing guy on the planet on Fat Tuesday this year. I don't know. Only time will tell.
Us talking about it, he's going to get customers all over the United States, and he's just like, shit, how am I going to get Yay Meat to Vermont? Just put it in one of these like 2-day things and hope it doesn't thaw out.
Oh my God.
So what are we talking about today? Like, I guess we got to like get this thing back on
2
the
hours
rails.
of meat.
2 hours of meat. Actually, I have a pretty good story of the first time I had good meat outside of like let's keep this train off the tracks. So like I grew up in kind of like an agrarian family. We didn't eat out a lot. We didn't have a whole lot of money. My parents take huge offense to me saying that we were poor because they worked really hard. They
Sure.
and like to say that they're poor makes them feel like I didn't respect the amount of effort that went into raising 2 boys and a husband. Like my mom gets really pissed off about that. So she prefers the term frugal, and frugal I think actually is pretty good for what it was and what we did. And so I didn't eat out a whole lot. We get like a kid's meal every once in a while, especially if they had cool toys or something. But like we cooked food all the time, and the food that we ate was really good because it was like deer meat that my dad hunted. And so like I didn't actually grow up with like beef. I grew up with venison. And so like when people are like, use ground beef in this, I'm like, how come this tastes not as good? Like, oh, you're used to venison. And so like I would do things like we'd make like pizzas, and I would use venison on pizza and stuff. And people are like, what the fuck is up with your like pizza? I'm like, it's good, right? And they're like, I don't know if it is. It's like, cause like they're ready for sausage or like ground hamburger, and it's fucking venison. But I liked it. It was what I grew up with. So I had this girlfriend after high school, and she was almost 20 years older than me. And it was awesome. Like it really, I didn't know she was my girlfriend until after we broke up, and I was like, oh man, I was in a relationship with a woman who was 20 years my senior. um and I just was too young to like really respect that relationship. But she taught me how to eat food, like actual food. Like I didn't know what a tomato tastes like until I had like, she was like, this is what an actual fucking tomato tastes like. I'm like, holy shit, this is amazing. So one day after work, she sent a text, and she's like, come, and I have something that I want to show you. Come to the restaurant that I work at. Bring him your appetite. And it's like, is it okay if Ian comes with me? Like she's trying to like impress me. I'm like, can I bring the drummer in my band? And she loved us, so it was like fine. But like I was totally fucking oblivious. And I show up to this like really nice tapas restaurant. They had these like prime cut fillets that like, it was the first time I had ever had a medium steak, and it was the first time I'd ever had like a fillet. Like it was like, I remember looking at it and being like, I've never had meat that looks like this. And I remember cutting into it, and I was like, oh my god, I've never had meat that's this red. I was like, it's like, Nicole, is this supposed to look bit? And she's like, don't worry, I told the chef to make it what was best. And so I remember taking that first bite, and it was on asparagus and mashed potatoes, and it was like this beautiful bowl. I remember that first bite of real meat, the real fillet, and it like melted in my mouth, and like I almost cried. And I looked over at Ian, and I was just like, dude, is this as good as I think it is? And the look on his face was just like, holy shit, I've never had food like this before. We were drinking like Newcastles, and so like we got like, of course, drunk at Thomas Bar, eating this like probably $30 steak or something. And she wouldn't let us pay. And I remember just being like, getting in my car and driving home and feeling really guilty that I just ate that amazing meal for free. But knowing that from that point on, like shitty steak, shitty meat, like I just like I couldn't do it anymore. And like from there, I'm just like, so like when I see people order like the steak at Applebee's, like a New York strip at Applebee's, I'm like, do you fucking like yourself?
Yeah. Do you have any respect? What are you doing?
Right.
You know why you're here.
And it totally fucked me up, man. It was one of those things that when you have those moments of like good food and you actually get to like experience something like that, like it changes.
Yeah,
you're a different person afterwards.
I agree. And like, yeah, you just go to Applebee's to just get drunk there. That's the only reason you go to Applebee's.
Get the mudslides, man. Just do it.
It's like Chili's. I've never seen anybody eat at Chili's, but you go there for the 2-for-1 drinks and the bottomless chips and salsa.
Yeah. You get a quesadilla once you've got a couple beers in you. That's how you do it.
That's true. Somehow food ends up on your table and you're not quite sure where that transaction took place.
Yeah, this is some really sly fucking server. It's just like, oh, I know you look hungry. Yeah. I'm gonna bring one of these over. Yeah. I'll ring you up for it. Don't worry, I got you.
They just heard you mumbling the Baby Back Ribs song, and they just show up.
Yeah.
I was a baby back.
Oh my god, you're right. And that's how it happens. And then you're stuck there for another like 4 hours. And you're like, where did my afternoon go?
Yeah, if you've ever actually intentionally ordered food from Chili's, let us know, or else we're just going to assume it just accidentally showed up on your table.
I most certainly remember ordering food there when I was younger. I haven't eaten at a place like that in so long. I just like, there's so many better places, and I'd rather take a risk on a new restaurant that I don't understand than eat at something like that. I'd rather almost not eat, especially in a town like St. Louis. There's so much good food here. You're just like Like, why would you even do that to yourself?
We used to have a Chili's in the parking lot of one of the Targets that I was a manager at. And we'd all get done with our shifts at somewhere between like 5 and 6.
Sure.
And especially on like Mondays and Fridays when we were all there. And by 5 or 6, we'd been working for either 10 or 11 hours at that point, and we were over it. So we would go to Chili's, and it would be like our check would be like $200 of margaritas and one order of chips. And it was like, 2-for-1 margaritas for 10 people for like 4 hours straight. And it's like we all just ate the bottomless chips, like at least like, $60 of chips. And it's like, yeah, here's the $3 charge for chips. Hope you guys had fun.
I mean, it's a good thing that that's where they make all their money off of, is the drinks. That truly their profit center is that. So like, you were doing that restaurant good things. I'm sure after that group of people were broken up, that Chili's probably plummeted. They were just like, where? That was their best way to start the week off.
Where did all those State Farm people go? Oh my God, man. Okay, so this episode is not just about meat. It's about meeting your new hobby. It's about starting something new.
Oh, dude, that was so wholesome. I'm so glad you did that. That was great.
Oh my God. It's just meat puns for days, the rest of the episode.
I mean, there's got to be like at least like 3 more that we can come up with. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, if we finish it just right, it'll be a job well done.
Yeah, it will be a steak well done. No, not trying too hard. Sauce, how do you look at hobbies and getting into new hobbies? I actually don't know your process on this. Like, we talked in, like, I mean, this is kind of like the deep end part 2.
Yeah,
and we talked about being in the deep end, but like, how do you get interested in something new? What is your life like that leads you down the hole of painting minis or like playing golf, or the things that have been like, how did you end up in those positions?
It's like, conceptually, how do I decide to get into it, or what do I do once I've decided to get into it?
Conceptually, like before you have actually decided, because I think that is like a real clear delineation line. Like, I think that like being interested in something and then taking that step to actually be into it should be like pretty clear and defined, because they're like 2 different phases.
Okay, so I am a complete sucker for YouTube, and I watch a lot of YouTube, and I would say pretty much most of my hobbies, other than golf, have just fallen into my lap from YouTube, I would say.
And just the algorithm is like, we think he's going to be into this.
Yeah. So I mean, that's how I got into Warhammer. Like, YouTube, I was just laying on my couch dying one day, and it was like,
literally dying.
Yeah.
Not figuratively. You were literally sick.
Yeah.
And on the couch.
Yeah. And YouTube was just like, hey, are you interested in watching this Warhammer 8th edition battle report? And I was like, holy shit. Yes, I am. And that was pretty much it. That was it. No looking back from there. But I think I think that I'm like easily sold on things by like the romance of marketing. Like, if something looks interesting to me, then I'm down. But it has to like mark off a couple buckets, like, for me to be interested. So it's like, I think it has to be something that I can like meet people at. That's important to me, is like meeting people that are like-minded. And it's something that I can do. This is very, very specific, while listening to music.
Yeah, dude, that is pretty key for me as well. Like, it either has to be music related, or I have to be able to be listening to music, because like, my ears are so fucked up after years of working in machine shops and playing in loud bands and, traveling with the circus, shooting guns. Like, my ears are fucked at this point. And so like, if you're doing something in silence, like I don't understand people who love silence. Like,
I can't.
Like, can't even I can't even get into it.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think by that same thing also, I think it also has to be something that can be enjoyed alone or with others, right? And I think that,
Right.
golf and Warhammer, weirdly enough, tick off all of the exact same check marks. Like, I had a very long discussion with a therapist about this one time about how golf and Warhammer are practically the same hobby. And it's like, I don't know. I would say that those are like, the first things, but I don't know. I think I'm just kind of a sucker for like the romance of good marketing, or just seeing somebody experiencing something brings it to the surface where I'm like, well, that's interesting. And then I think that if I could see myself doing that, then it begins the interest of wanting to get involved. But I think that those are
Sure.
kind of the initial check marks, is like, okay,
Sure.
how does this work? And yeah.
What was the last hobby that you got seduced by the marketing of it? When you saw that, you're like, oh, I need to do this. And you like one where your wife walks into the room and it's just like, are you the same guy that like
Oh my god. I mean the big one where she's like, "What the fuck, man? Okay, I still love you." It was probably just like I was like, "Hey, I'm going to get really deep into Warhammer." But I mean, I think the most recent thing that I got into was like street photography. That was like big for me like mid to late last summer when I got out of streaming. I was like, I need something like some sort of a media project that I can just dump time and effort and energy into, because I love the art of making content and media and stuff like that.
sure.
And that to me, I don't really see commercials for like Canon. Like, I don't see a Canon camera commercial, first of all, ever. I don't think I've ever seen a Canon camera commercial, but I can't imagine seeing that and being like, I want to do that. For me, it was just seeing a YouTube. Like, I bumped into this creator. His name is Northern Borders, and he's from Australia, and now he lives in Germany or something like that. He fled Australia during COVID because he got so sick of the restrictions, which seems fair. I don't know enough about the COVID restrictions in Australia, but they
Oh, it
seemed
was bad.
yeah, really like over the top. Like, I'm very like pro the right restrictions at the right times for COVID, but
Yeah.
Australia seemed a little much.
And
And
they went on for a long time. That was like the
yeah,
real problem. Like, I talked with a couple people from Australia during the murder basement days, and it was like they did it the way that everybody should have done it, but they also did it like 3 weeks too late. Like, New Zealand did it right because like New Zealand never hit big waves. So they shut down for a couple weeks and then they would come back, and then they shut down for a couple weeks. Like, this is like an accordion going in and out.
yeah,
Like, it was fluid. Australia was not.
yeah.
It very much was not.
So yeah, so he picked up his shit and he moved to Germany in the peak of COVID. But anyways, a very interesting content creator, very great street photographer, and his style of photography and like his color edits like really spoke to me, because that was a lot of stuff that I kind of had been experimenting with, but didn't really know that I was. Like, I didn't really know that that's the color palette that I liked, and I was
Sure.
like, man, this guy does a lot of stuff the way that if I was gonna do street photography, I would also do it that same way. And so his content really spoke to me. And so I just went out and started shooting street. That was pretty much it. But it was, I think, just seeing something that I had kind of toed with, but then seeing somebody enjoying it and doing it, I was like, oh, hell yeah, I am sold. And so I'd say that's probably like just photography in general is kind of like my last big being exposed to it through media, specifically YouTube, and then just really wanting to get more invested in it. And like,
Sure.
that continues still. Like, I have a photo shoot tonight at a nightclub, and it's something that I'm passionate about. I love to do it, and it's really exciting, and it's a good outlet for me. It's a creative outlet for me, and
And
it
you're very good at it too. You've
thanks,
got a
man.
good eye.
And it helps me like, improve at my other hobbies too. Like, it's kind of like a universal umbrella hobby that's just got a huge audience. The photography audience and videography audience is massive. So like, as a content
Yeah.
creator, that's rewarding to know that my reach is huge through that kind of stuff. But I don't know, it just speaks a lot to me. So I'd say that's probably the last thing that I was exposed to that I was like, oh hell yeah, I'm down to get into this.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
What about you?
I my last one, and my wife just knows by now, like whenever I'm like doing anything online, like she's just like terrified that I'm going to get into like the next thing. She's like, what? Oh God, what is he looking at now? And so like a couple weeks ago, I got into like watching people making like leather wallets and things and, purses and satchels and just all sorts of like leather work stuff, which is really fascinating,
Mhm.
just because like it was something that I used to like. That's how we found Trenton and Heath, which is just insane that I still watch their videos and just like I fucking want like that we need to like come at them like the Highlander. Can be only one. You silver foxes, get out of our way. It's time to pass the torch. um and that they recently just were featured on like a YouTube documentary thing for like leaving their corporate jobs and doing that. And like it's exciting to watch all that shit. And my wife was just like, oh fuck, he's gonna get into leatherworking, which didn't happen. It was just something that was like really relaxing to have on in the background, like these ASMR videos of people like doing leatherworking and not talking and building shit. And I'm just like, do school to that to the sound of people like doing their craft, doing their hobby, and it was cool. And then we watched the show called Only Murders in the Building. Have you seen this? Heard of this?
No.
It's on Hulu. It's a Hulu exclusive show, and
Okay.
it is Steve Martin and Martin Short, which are some of the funniest human beings alive. Period. Like they're so fucking funny, and Selena Gomez, who I haven't ever been a Selena Gomez anything because she was just always too young for me. She's just like this cute little young, Disney star that just I was like, it was way under me. And like so like I missed all of that stuff. I missed all the like Hannah Montanas into the Miley Cyrus stuff. I was aware of all these people, but like I just was already too old at that point. She is like kind of like a vapid character in the show, but she is like the perfect person to put right next to those two because it grounds them. And like and as she gets into the show, she shows more of her range. I was like, fuck, I'm like really glad that I'm watching this show. In the middle of the show, Steve Martin is like a very accomplished musician. He plays banjo mainly. Like that's what he'll do during his comedy sets, which is always funny seeing him in a banjo because he's a hell of a player. But he pulls out a little fucking squeeze box concertina and is having this like duel back and forth with an oboist across the like their windows in their like courtyard. And so it's this big echoey sound, and he's like playing like Take Me Out to the Ball Game and shit. And I'm watching this and I was like, oh shit, that's great. And like you could see like Mal just being like, oh, here we go. Like he just found it. Like it just, and so like 2 days later, she comes over to give me a kiss goodnight, and I'm like looking at concertinas on my fucking phone. She's like, "Oh no!" So I got like way into concertinas to the fact that like I'm going to buy one. I like have decided that I want small folk style instruments because like all of my synthesizers are actually like really big, but I want something that's kind of like a synthesizer in real life. And so like my only choices are accordion or concertina or harmonica, of which I don't like harmonica. There's something about like the spit and like I don't know. I get like really weird about woodwind stuff at this point. And I think it's just because like I had such gross tonsils growing up that like just like everything just kind of smelled and it kind of grossed me out. And now like I have my tonsils removed, so I probably don't have anything to worry about. But still, the like you just see people and they're just like smoking a cigarette and then they're like and you're like, oh, like I don't know. There's something about it grosses me out. So I like borrowed a concertina from a buddy, and like he had the same sort of thing like 2 years prior, and he wanted a small little folk instrument, and has been in like storage for a while. And so like he let me borrow it, and I'm like, oh, this thing's cool. It's way harder than you think. And because I am an idiot, asshole, pretentious, like guitar player, forcing myself into places where I'm like, things need to work this way instead of like learning the instrument for what it is, I had to pick like the format of concertina that nobody has. There's like 2 people making them in the entire world at this moment. And so it's just like I had to pick the weirdest, most esoteric one possible. And finding that one, I was like, oh yeah, no, I could totally do this. And now like I'm like learning like Tears for Fears songs on it. And so I'm like learning Mad World. I figured out like the initial run of the Castlevania song Vampire Killer, which is the
Yeah.
like I like, and I'm bad at it. Like, don't think that like I'm instantly picking up and like, I'm fucking great. Like, no, I suck real bad because I've only been playing it for 10 days now, but I'm having a lot of fun with it. And I'm realizing that like as the more I watch the stuff online, the less they're doing what I want it to, because I hate folk standards. Like just it's so fucking boring, and I'm so over it. But I really love when people do things with traditional instruments that are like outside the norm, like the Punch Brothers is like a really good example of like a bluegrass band that treats it like a string quartet. And so like if you go and listen to songs like Movement and Location off of How Old Are We Now or something, or Familiarity off of the Phosphorescent Blues, you're listening to songs that are just unbelievable, and like this skill that goes into them, and like they don't sound like anything you've ever heard before. And I'm like, that is what I want. Like I get so tired of music that sounds like everybody else. I get tired of all of my like hobbies being like everybody else. I'm looking for a true form of artistic expression and identity in these things. And so when I see someone actually do it, I just get so passionate about it. I was like, oh my God, this is the best. And so like right now I'm currently in it. Like I love, like I'm learning it. I'm having fun. I'm considering getting a mandolin just because it's also small. And once you watch the Punch Brothers, you'll understand why mandolin kind of makes sense. Like watch some Punch Brothers videos. Your brain will melt. You'll be like, holy shit.
I love that.
Sorry, that was a lot of words that I just threw at you. That was a lot of words.
No, I feel like you always have some new interesting venture that's like, I saw this shit on YouTube. Are we both just like YouTube people and that's where we just get sucked in?
Oh, absolutely. Like I don't want to be, especially since like the YouTube algorithm is part of the reason why we are as fucked up as a nation as we are right now. Because like the second you start looking at one thing, it totally gives you confirmation bias as like, oh, you looked at something that was a little bit more conservative. Well, let me show you these other things that these conservative people looked at. And pretty soon you're in like a Q fucking like conspiracy theory hole. And like half of your family doesn't want to talk to you anymore. And that's something that like has happened. Like they have proven it. They have like, and I think that it's, risky to follow an algorithm for your entertainment, but that's what I do like truly all the time. And so like I have to like work at breaking the algorithm to show me new stuff, because otherwise it like, oh, you're into renewables this week, let me show you all the videos on solar panels. I'm like, get fucked. I don't need all of that. Like
Yeah.
so sometimes it's hard to not find something new, like it's hard to find something new because the algorithm just pushes you in a direction. You're just like, this is too much. This is too much Warhammer. This is too much. Then you end up on like the like edgelord Warhammer shit, and you're like, oh, this is awful.
Dude, Warhammer anything is always like just 3 clicks away from 4chan. Like if you just click on the wrong thing a couple times, you're just on 4chan and you're like, oh, how the fuck did I get here?
I was like really nervous about discourse right off the bat, because like her analytics and the way that she talks about shit, I was like, oh God, like this could go either way, you know, like I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt, but like I've heard people rant like this on about Warhammer, and it was always like 2 videos later they dropped the N word, or they use the term cuck, and they're just like, ugh. And you know, she's always stayed above that. Although I would like to see her take that passion that drives her nuts about GW and use that to like talk about things that she actually likes, because like you know, I think that that is something that is important. If you're gonna talk about the bad stuff, you gotta bring it back in with some good stuff in there, and I'd love to see that adjustment in her content. But otherwise, like I don't got many complaints. I'm pretty proud that she's actually like talking about these things with like a reasonable brain, and you know, actually analyzing things, and has a strong command of the English language. I'm like, yeah, her lexicon is excellent.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah, she makes great stuff. I've always been impressed. Right out of the gate, I was like, yo, Discourse is on a rant, but it's a good rant. And she brings a lot of good, like, she is fantastic at the persuasive part of presenting an argument that's like right out of the gate. Like she says something, you're like, wait a minute. And then she's got the evidence that by the end of it, you're like, even if you don't agree, you at least understand her perspective. And it's like, that's so important in persuasion, is like, ultimately the point of persuasion is to get people to see what you see and, you know, side with you. But if the people still don't, but understand why you side the way that you do, that's so important. That's what she does super well. Yeah, she's an awesome ranter. And she's huge fan.
And she's not like, and if you don't think the way I'm thinking, you're a fucking idiot. You know, like she's not divisive. Like she turns people off just because like women in the hobby take a lot more heat than they should, and she's like, everybody is real sensitive about their fucking space Barbies. You know, like this shit is sacred cow to them. And I'm like, man, fucking space toys. Like, get over it.
Space dolls,
toys, man. It's fine. It's totally fine.
Yeah. So, okay. So you get into a new hobby, or you see it. Then what's your next step? Is to just get in? You just go deep end? That's step deep 1. Find a new hobby. Step 2, deep end.
Deep end. Yeah. So like I look for the community around it. Like I'm very much like you. Like I don't want to do things in a vacuum anymore. I think that I have a real tendency to let things like life, you know, go in a way that like, oh, I fucking missed it, you know, and that's and I don't want to do that. So like I want to be able to have a group of people I can do things with. Like I got into knitting really heavy in like 2008, 2009 era. And I've had a lot of fun. Knitting is a great hobby. It is a almost exclusive solo hobby, because like, you know, you do it while listening to music, you do it while watching TV, you do it while you're sitting down, you know, to unwind for the night. You could do like they call them stitch-ins, where you go and you'd sit in, you'd start, you know, needlepoint, you'd do fucking crochet, you know, knitting, whatever it was. And like I could never bring myself to do them, not because like I have a problem with hanging out with older women, but it's because like it's not that they wouldn't have accepted me. They were very sweet, and you know, they were great teaching me how to do it. But like I also want to be able to like talk about the new Cannibal Corpse song. You know, like I want to be able to, like I want heavy metal knitting, of which like I found the book that you know, Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day. His wife is like an accomplished knitter and crocheter, and made a fucking book on like how to make punk rock fucking knitting cool. And like she was like made a floor mat out of old VHS tapes and shit like that. You know, it's just like a really great idea. And like if I could have found that audience, I would have done it. But like I don't want to hear about somebody's grandkids. Like truly, if you're talking to me about your fucking kids, like I could give 2 shits. Like I hate to be like hard and crass like that. I don't have any love for people that are like under the age of 13. They're fucking annoying. They offer very little positive to the world. They're still parasitic as far as I'm concerned. And I've even said like really hot takes of like, you should be able to board up to like 5 years old, like, because like, I don't get it. I don't have that in me. I really want to be like a mentor. So I like the idea of like, you have cognitive thought, you're trying to understand the world, you're trying to develop your own things, and you can push back like in a way that it's not like, but why? Like, I like that attitude. So that's where I'm at. So like, I don't want to hear about your husband or your kids. I want to talk about that new Lars von Trier movie. I want to talk about why this band is good. I want to have that conversation, and I just know, that was not what I was going to get in those circles, unfortunately. So if I could find like a Stitch and Bitch, like knitting group where everything was just like, and we're going to talk about the new Slayer album tonight, we're going to read the new Stephen King book, like whatever, like if it could be that, I think I would probably have a lot of fun with it. But like that hobby, I got super deep into. I have a box like behind me here full of yarn that like I just collected, and I have a bunch of needles. And so whenever I want to get back into it, I can start doing it again, because it's a great hobby to like refocus. Like my therapist said it was very similar to EMDR, which is like a light pattern that helps you like take things that are like really heavy duty and like process them to a beat, and it kind of breaks the way that your brain processes stuff. So when shit's out of control, it gives you control again. It's very similar to that, because you can only knit to a certain speed, and so you get into this cadence and this rhythm, and you start working things through in your brain, and suddenly you're doing your own therapy for you. And it was really good for me. That was a hobby that I would do a lot more if I had more time where I'm not just doing anything. I'm kind of doing something all the time right now.
So is it important to you when you get into something new to find like-minded individuals inside of the same bubble?
Yeah, I would say so. Like I can't think of a hobby that I got into besides knitting that was just like I did solely on my own. Like I never found that group. And I did knitting for a long time. Like it was just a good I did it mainly when I quit smoking. That was like how I got through that. And so I knitted a lot.
I bet there is a Discord or a Facebook group that's just heavy metal knitters, and you guys can just talk about metal albums and knit. I bet that's a thing.
There is. I've seen it. I think Big Think, while they were still doing videos on YouTube, there was like a heavy metal knitting thing where they were like headbanging and knitting. Like and it was like those air guitar competitions, and it's like who could get farthest while headbanging.
Yes,
it's really funny.
Dude, I think Facebook is so okay. I think Facebook is probably the best resource for getting into something new, which fucking sucks because I hate Facebook. But damn, are Facebook groups an incredibly powerful way to meet people that have the same interests in you, that you can learn from, share stories with, share things along the way. Like Facebook groups are the only reason I'm on Facebook. I don't care about anything else on Facebook. And then there is hilarious Facebook groups like the car group where everyone acts like boomers. That is the greatest thing ever. Dude, that's the so best funny. Group on the internet. And it's 40,000 people role playing boomers talking about cars all day. It's incredible. But I think that there's definitely something to finding a community when you get into something new. I would say that's probably been a big difference between when I think about some of my older hobbies and some of the ones I've got more into recently, like photography and Warhammer, even like thinking, over the course of my whole life, Warhammer is, I've only been into it for like 3-4 years. And I got into groups like right away because I was like, how the fuck are you supposed to find anybody that's into this kind of stuff? And so I started using Facebook groups to find people, and the online communities, while they can be incredibly toxic and horrible, also gives you a way to actually meet somebody who approach the hobby the same way as you, that think about the hobby the same way as you. Cause I think like getting into something new can be overwhelming because it's like, like golf, for example, right? Like there's not a lot of like younger guys who are like really into it. So like golf is an example of something that I've gotten into where I've never felt connected to a community because it's hard to like find somebody who thinks about golf the same way as me, where it's like, let's drive around with a Bluetooth speaker blaring. If we have to skip a hole because the group in front of us is playing slow, let's skip a hole because it's not worth playing a slow round of golf. Like you don't really meet a lot of like younger dudes like who think like this,
Sure.
like because we're just vastly outpopulated on the golf course. It's a bunch of like 50-year-old guys who are hanging out, and it's like
Dude,
you're
it's the same with
probably
my knitting group, man. You're just like this is they are on their own shit. Why do I need to come in and disrupt it? Like
yeah.
that, because that's true. We become the agent provocateurs very quickly, especially when we want to min max our amount of enjoyment out of something. Like we become the fucking problem, and like truthfully, like they should be looking at it as like these guys are bringing the passion. Like they're doing things in a way that like nobody does, and that's fucking exciting. But
Yeah, and that
rarely is it look like that.
it can be hard. Like when you get into something new, it can be hard because I would say a lot of things that you get into, there's a lot of people who are into it also. It's just trying to figure them out. But then inside of that, it's finding like your little circle that is like so important to like actually getting past the surface level of getting into something, right? Where it's like, I like to do photography, for example. You know how many other photographers there are? Millions, millions
Yeah.
and millions of us. But, that population gets a lot smaller when it's all of a sudden like, Denver street photography group, which I left
Right.
on Facebook. That was one of those toxic, horrible, dumb groups on Facebook. I was like, this group sucks. The Denver street photography group sucks on Facebook, which is a bummer because that's exactly what I like to do. I like to walk around Denver and do street photography. And it's like,
Sure.
that group I did not connect with. So I feel a little bit distance from that smaller bucket of potential friendships and people I can meet who are like-minded because I just don't like that group. And so
Sure.
it's, I think there's two sides to it, right? Like Facebook groups are an amazing asset and a great way to find people to help you power through the initial surface level of getting into something new. But it's also, you're exposed to a lot of this bullshit that can happen on Facebook and just being on the internet in general. And so it's like, you got to take it with a grain of salt, and it is what it is. But like, yeah. And I think that's something that weirdly enough, I think Warhammer has been an incredible hobby because it's insane how many people have shared experiences. The amount of people that I can just say, like, if I was like, hey, have you had some weird like mental health problems and do you listen to heavy metal and do you paint Warhammer? The amount of people that would raise their hand in any given room of Warhammer is insane. That you have so much in common with so many people that it's like, that was the weirdest thing for me learning about Warhammer. And what really helped me get deep into it is I was like, I have so much in common with these people, more so than I've ever had in common with any other hobby I've ever been a part of. And like, that is so inviting and so nice to have that in the hobby. And like that having a lot in common with a community that also shares one united reason to even be there in the first place is such a great way to like power through getting into something. Cause I think it's easy.
Yeah.
Maybe not for everybody, but I think for you and me, I think we're a lot of like that. It's easy to start something, but it's all about like, sure, we'll jump in the deep end right away because that's just how we are. But then what's next? Like, do we swim or do we just sink while we're in there? And I think a lot of what I've learned over the years is if I can find somebody more really similarly brained that I can really connect with, then I'm much more satisfied.
Yeah, your chances of sticking in the hobby or the hobby sticking are much higher, which is the same. Like, so like step one, find your new interest. Step two, do some research. Step three, find a fucking community to get into and start finding like-minded people. I think that phase is one that drives it's easily, I think, the most important part before you actually spend money on something. Or if you're like us and you just fucking spend money. Like I've got a rule of spending money when it comes to hobbies and how you should look at it. But like when you find a community who's there, who's answering your questions and helping you, like be really fucking thankful of anybody who reaches out and actually listen to them. Like one of my biggest pet peeves, especially when it comes to like painting, is when people start like asking about shit that they have no, like, I heard one dickhead on something say that you should only paint with these brushes and I can't afford these brushes, like, and they like get into the weeds and they're trying to talk themselves out of doing the hobby. And I'm just like, do it or don't. I don't give a fuck. Like, but like, here's what people who actually do this like actually do, and listen to us, because like
Mm-hmm.
we'll save you a lot of heartache. And like, I just watched somebody come through the brush coven who I think spent more money trying to get Games Workshop paints to work, because she had heard that you needed to put things in dropper bottles to make it work. So she was like doing all this stuff before ever painting a single model. And I was just like, why are you doing this to yourself? Like, just fucking paint.
I think some
Like,
people like just struggle with just starting something. I think that they have like a romance idea of what being in a hobby looks like, and they struggle with taking the first step.
I think you're probably right. And like the interesting thing is like I had it started actually like really affecting my mental health, because like I was like becoming mad, and like you should never be mad at new people starting,
Sure.
like like that. Don't be that fucking cranky old dick. But like I do want to like instantly like start being snarky. Like, it's part of my sense of humor. And it's like, if you're not going to listen to me, you're going to start getting like the shitty part of me. And because it entertains me. And if you're not, your skin isn't thick enough to stick around, then like maybe you shouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm.
There's a ton of other groups, and luckily I think she found a group that was more her speed. And I think she more wanted to do like terrain stuff, which I totally get. Like, that's a whole nother ball game of like sculpting, and it's fun, it's great. Like, there's awesome groups into it, you can focus into it. But like, if you're asking about painting a space marine, and people who've painted hundreds of space marines are telling you this is how you paint a space marine, and you don't want to listen to them, like, I have very little patience for people who do that. Like, I can't, I don't have the time. And I really just like start losing my shit instantly. So like figure out where you belong and what you want early on, because half of what you're like going through and what your expectation is, like, in the same way, like, your first therapist may not be the best therapist for you. Your first group that you might walk in might not be the best group for you. But like, don't ever look at the people who've been doing it for fucking 20 years and tell them that they're doing it wrong, just because you're doing it not the way that they, that you want to. Like, you just probably need to find another group, because you just make everybody seem like dicks, and like truly that isn't the intention most of the time. And so like
Yeah.
I've seen that happen multiple times, and it always just really bums me out, because you're just like, we're trying to help you. We're trying to maximize your fun, and you're just not even being, you're not even listening to it or being a part of it. Like do it first before you've decided whether or not you don't want to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
and I know I have that same sort of thing. That's why, like, as I'm looking at this like new concertina that's in this kind of obscure setup, like I could learn the standard way, but truthfully, like, I don't like Irish jigs, and that's kind of what the other ones are built for. And that's like, it's not that they're bad, it's just like that it's boring. I want something that's kind of like a tiny accordion. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's truly what it is, which means like, that's the world I gotta live in. And so like I am having fun researching it, but I'm also knowing that like, if I ask too much and push too hard, I will start to piss off this group, because they all really love Irish jigs and folk music. And I'm like, how do I turn this into metal? How do I turn this into something heavy? How do I turn this punk? Like, how do I get there? And they're all about the fundamentals. So, know your audience, I guess
Yeah,
is
that's
what really I should
huge.
say. Because like, yeah, you just turn people off instantly, and then you're like, those guys were dicks, and really you were the fucking asshole. And I
Yeah.
know that I can be the asshole. So I really have to watch that one.
Yeah, being able to read the room when you're new to the room or new to something is huge, dude. It's something that I think is hilarious to watch it go the wrong way on the internet.
Oh my god, it goes south so
It
fast.
goes so bad so fast. And then people get so mad, and it's like, Well, one of two things just happened. You either just didn't read the group rules when you sent a request, or you
Yeah.
just, for some reason, don't know about the search feature inside of groups where, guess what? This question has been asked literally every day. And it's been
Yeah.
answered.
Yeah.
It's been answered so many times that when you post about it, it's just a meme. And so it's like, I think a lot of the time you have to approach something new kind of like, I think it is fair to ask questions, but I think you need to do
Absolutely.
your due diligence first and be like, "Hey,
Google is your friend.
Google is your
It's
friend." So is this the
YouTube is
search
your friend.
feature. The search feature inside of groups is the most unknown and underrated tool on getting to know something.
Absolutely.
If you're into 3D printing, for example, right? You join the Saturn 3D printing group because you have a Elegoo Saturn printer, and then you
Yeah.
realize, week 5, you spilled some resin or your FEP punctured. Well, all you
Or
have to
you
do.
what's the best settings for my
Oh
printer to
my
not have
god, that's
failures?
dude,
And
that's
they're all just like,
perfect.
"Get fucked, noob."
Perfect example is settings. All you do is you just join this group and you just search for the word settings. And you know what you're going to find?
Settings.
People who say, "Here's my settings and a picture of a print that came out really good. Feel free to use these." And guess what you
Yeah.
just did? You learned, you didn't look like an idiot, and you didn't piss off people who are sick of the same question all the time. And I think that you kind
Yeah.
of have to accept that as a new person, it's whatever you are like, I don't know this, somebody else didn't know it before you and has probably already asked. And if somebody's pissed off that they have to answer it a second time because you didn't just search for it, I think that's fair to be pissed off about, to be honest. But
Sure.
yeah, I think being able to read a room and approach it like from a place of wanting to learn but to also be proactive in your research is so huge, to just not getting completely trolled out of the internet.
Yeah, I think that like I know like right now with the concertina thing, they're like I really need a duet concertina, which has bass on the left hand, treble on the right. Fucking, it's an accordion. That's what we're talking about here. It's basically a piano key because that's what I understand. It's basically a guitar neck because that's what I understand. Like anything that's set up outside of that, I don't get. And there's like 3 different types of them, of which the one I like is the one that was developed in like the 80s, and it was developed, I believe, by an American. So leave it to me to be like, I need the one thing that nobody builds because like nobody builds these things anymore anyways. Like it's like shitty like Chinese built stuff happens all the time. And so like I and trying to find any information that is conclusive on the internet about them is really hard because like the people who play concertinas aren't young. So like when they were doing internet stuff, it was all like forums and like early like Angel Fire web pages, of which like half that shit is unsearchable now. So like I had to be like, when I first asked, it's like, what is the difference between these things, and like am I doing it wrong? And a bunch of people are like, no, you're right. And like that was nice to have that confirmation bias there, but it also meant that like they're like, well, if you decide to go other way, I have things to sell. And as much as I like love like vintage instruments, you know what comes along with vintage instruments? Problems. So like I think being able to like do your research, use your information to like when you do find like the direction that you want to go, like be able to like make that decision and stick with it because you actually have done enough things. Like take take those like that initial gut reaction and be like, okay, this is actually probably the best way to go because of these things, and don't look back because like it always drives me nuts. It pissed me off so much when you work with people at Guitar Center and like one day they'd buy a Schecter 7 string because this looks like what the guy from Avenged Sevenfold plays, and then the next day they would like trade that in for something else, and there was this and that. Like fucking take a breath, make a decision, move in it, and then immerse yourself in that. Like that is a real key part of getting into something because you'll drive everybody nuts. Like if you got money to just throw at stuff and just be like, oh yeah, no, it's fine, I'll do this and I'll do that, like literally everybody in the room fucking hates you. One, because they are jealous that they can't spend money like you do, but also like you just are, you that dilettante sort of thing, you're not respecting any of what's there. And like, I get it. Like, I want to break every rule, but like, I understand that there's certain aspects of like learning an instrument that you just kind of have to learn the instrument as the instrument and then learn how to break it. You're instantly starting off breaking it is generally just like turns into like nonsense, and nobody wants to be a part of that. And it's the same with painting. It's the same with, fucking skiing. Nobody is going to say start doing tricks right off the bat if you're not doing like fucking, hot dogs and pizza, hot dog pizza, hot dog pizza. If you haven't learned how to go down the hill and then you're like trying to go down the park, like everybody's gonna fucking hate your guts. Like, don't be that person. Listen to people, do your due diligence. Not saying you have to master it before moving on to the thing that you want, but understand the world that you're getting into, because that is how you're going to interact with everybody else around you. And if you're instantly like telling everybody that they're fucking wrong because they're not doing it the way that you want to, truthfully, you're the asshole, and not them. And that's something that I think is really key.
I agree. I think it's about understanding the lane that you exist in and knowing when it's time to change lanes. You know what I mean? Like understanding like this is how I enter the hobby. This is where I live. This is what I'm learning. And then I think just being fluid in your plan too. Like when you get into something, you might not get into it for what you think you got into it for. Like that'll change over time. Like I got into Warhammer to play Warhammer, and I just love painting now. And I play Warhammer, but I would definitely say I prefer painting over playing, and that was not at all what I set out to do when I got into it. Like not at all. And so it's, I don't know. I think you just have to approach with an open mind, take advice from people who have been in it, but I think you just get so much value out of being in a community. I think that's like the biggest thing is like find a community like right away, even before you get into it. I mean, that's a good point. You said that earlier about getting into a community and asking about, hey, what's the best way to get into this? What would you recommend? I'm thinking about buying this. Should I buy this instead? Like those people know. They'll tell you exactly why or why not to buy something.
Yeah. And listen to that shit, because like it's church. They're giving you straight up religion right there. And it's like you're denying something that could save you so much time and hassle in the future. Just fucking listen to him. If somebody would have told me, Heath, really what you should do is spend, $80 on mini paints, instead of like piecemealing it out at the beginning to get the set that you actually want. And then, you can add to it as like new things come out. I think I would have had a very different start mini painting, but I was like, I need these starter sets because I get the best value out of it. When truthfully, like, I didn't actually really resonate with how those paints worked, and people talk shit on like army painter paints, but like I actually really loved army painter paints. Like I really got into them and I liked how they worked. And then I found Pro Acryl, which was like being able to do the stuff with army painter only in one pass. And so I was like, I found like my perfect paint, and that is like really key. And if I could have saved myself a bunch of steps instead of like, I bought like the Reaper skin tone set and the Reaper starter set, and and then the Citadel paints, and then if I would have actually just like get the army painter like big box, just like be fine. I could have done that like right off the bat for like $80 and changed my fucking path instantly. And then by the next time I could have like invested in, but then I doubled down on army painter and I got the full set, and I should have not done that because the added benefit, I think I only used like 2 extra paints on that whole set. I should have just bought those 2 extra paints and walked away. Like I should have found my next thing at that point, and I was just like kind of too indoctrinated into the brand to do it, and too intimidated to spend money on something that was sight unseen. Nobody had Monument Hobby stuff. Now it's like ubiquitous with the if you're on a Facebook group and you ask what's the paint, there's always 2 of us that are like, Pro Acryl's the best paint.
Pro Acryl.
Yeah, just do it. Just get it now. Spend the money. You'll thank us later.
I think it's really interesting. The more you get into something, you'll reach a level, even after you're new. I don't think it takes long. It takes experience, but you'll be able to identify your like case for use and personal preferences, I would say faster than you would expect has been my
Sure.
experience. And like, I was just at a camera store yesterday talking to a guy about, my photography style and if I should switch from Canon to Sony, because I am struggling with some low light shooting. I don't have the most high end Canon cameras, very middle tier that I'm really pushing to the limits in some of the environments that I shoot in. And I'm finally
Sure.
starting to see the limits of my equipment. And so I was having that discussion yesterday, right? Where YouTube would tell me without a doubt I need to be a Sony shooter because I shoot primarily low light, right? And
Yeah.
I'm in a camera store yesterday and I'm talking to a guy who switched from Canon to Sony, the camera salesman there who I've worked with before. And he's like, yeah, I switched to Sony last summer. I was primarily Canon and Nikon before, Nikon primarily for the last like 5, 6 years, but I have experience and pretty
Sure.
comfortable with Canon. He's like, I switched to Sony. It took me 9 months to feel proficient with their products. And I don't think it was an upgrade. He's like, I think it was just a straight side grade. And I mean, to get into the real weeds about camera selection, Sony brings some stuff to the table that Canon doesn't. Canon brings some stuff to the table that
Sure.
Sony doesn't. But it's interesting because I think figuring out and being able to have a discussion about my preferences and what I do like about Canon, um, and have a conversation with somebody who's like, "Hey, I did switch to Sony, and here's some things to think about." Where if I went on YouTube and just said best low light camera, 9 out of 10 YouTube people would tell me just be a Sony shooter. Where
Yeah.
I just go have a conversation with somebody who has some experience. I'm able to then explain my preferences. And then it's almost reinforced that I actually shouldn't switch to Sony. I should stay on the Canon
Right.
train, and that actually just upgrading my camera body inside of the Canon line would actually solve most of my problems. And then I wouldn't be stuck with having two different brand cameras with non-compatible lens systems and all these other problems, which is something that
Right.
you have to kind of just make a decision on either way, which is, to be honest, one thing the Sony does better than Canon, but that's a different conversation. All it
Sure.
does is it like, I'm not the most experienced photographer in the world. Like, I know what I'm doing. I'm capable of shooting. I know my way around a camera. I know my way around editing software. I'm not like wildly experienced, but I'm now to the point of shooting where I'm starting to see limitations of my equipment and I'm starting to learn my own preferences. And like, you kind of start to hit this point faster than you think, where you kind of are in that zone. And I think that a lot of
Yeah.
that has to do with, I've been exposed to a lot of communities. I've learned a lot, and it's really helped me understand like how I use my tools the best for me. And I think that's just from learning from other people, and being exposed to it has helped me so much.
Which is actually a great segue into my next point about getting into things. And this is the budget of getting into things. Take whatever money that you thought that you were going to spend and double it.
Dude, that's so
Take that
true.
money and fucking double it. Maybe even triple it. If you're planning on spending only $20, plan on spending 50. like or 100. Like,
Yeah.
to get into any hobby less than $100 is like almost impossible. So just know that whenever you're getting into something, like, take your price and double it. Like, I instantly was
Hmm.
like, oh, I want to spend like $400 on a concertina, and the cheapest version of the one that I want is like $460. I was like, okay, but it's missing like two extremely important notes on the bass and treble side that keeps me from like playing music in the key that I actually write most of my music, that's like most suited for my like voice. And so like I'm sitting there, I was like, so I'd spend $470 on a thing that like I could learn some folk songs and learn some things, but like when it came to actually me like working in my zone, I couldn't even do the music that I want. It's like, how does that make any sense? So then the next step up from there, and I shit you not, the next step up is $950. It's like double. And I was like, oh, I should have fucking known. Take what you were gonna say and double it. And like whenever I worked at Guitar Center and people like, I really want this. And I'm like, I know you really want that, and I can get you close to it. But I was like, if this is what you really want, take that like, $1,300 you're going to spend and put $2,600 into it, and you'll be exactly where you're at. And everybody be like, yeah, but I don't want to spend that much. And I was like, yeah, but like you're going to spend that much in a year anyway. So like, instead of spending, either you sell your gear, which you can do. You can sell cameras, you can sell instruments, you can sell all that stuff. You're not selling your used brushes. You're not selling your used paints, basically. Like that shit is consumable, and most people won't pay you money for them. So like, just get the good stuff first. Understand like that there is a sunk cost of getting into a hobby, and like and live with it. And then when somebody who's been in here and is saying, hey, this is what you want and you're not going to be happy until you get that, fucking listen to them. Because like if they say, oh, you don't need that, truthfully, there's nothing special about this, like that's great info, that's great intel that only people who've been in it will give you. But sometimes there's truly only one path to happiness, and that's throwing down some coin. And so like be ready to do it, and don't complain about it. Like, just be fortunate that you're in that zone that you can afford to do it. And if you can't afford to do it, find the next closest thing. There's always something within arm's reach that'll get you in across the finish line, especially at beginners, like starting. Once you've been doing it for years, all bets are off. But like, to start, you don't fucking know the difference. Like, and I tell people that all the time, like, oh, you want to spend $2,600 on that new synthesizer to play live, that or to record on an album or whatever. Like, yeah, it's really fucking cool, and if you know how to use that thing and be into it, yeah, you've got a great instrument. But if you're new and you're spending money, you're spending like Moog released this huge like polysynth. It was their first real polysynth. It was $8,000 for the high end one, and people were buying it who couldn't even fucking play it. Like, just flat out, they're like, I just have money to do it. And then like they're selling them at like huge losses because like they are huge and they're taking up their thing. Like, that's not beginner gear, that's fucking pro gear. Like, stay away from it. Like, there is virtual synths for that. Like, you can spend $100 on a fucking soft synth package and get like have something very similar. Like, don't go that deep into it like right off the bat, because chances are it's going to be way outside your norm. Just understand what you want out of it. Understand that you're going to have to pay more getting into it, but like, don't look at the pro gear stuff and be like, oh, I don't have a $5,000 mandolin, so I can't learn mandolin. Like, no, you can learn mandolin on like a $200 mandolin pretty well. Like, you can learn it. Like, is it going to sound the best? Probably not, but you don't know the difference. You can't hear the difference yet. Like, and even if you could, if you recorded it, nobody on an album's going to be able to tell the difference. Like, we all listen to like, music out of earbuds. Nobody knows what good music sounds like anymore. So shut the fuck up. It's fine. Like it's totally fine. Don't worry about it. It's, if it makes noise and it does what you want it to do, buy it.
Yeah, there's so many hidden costs into getting into something. I mean, Warhammer is a hilarious small example of it, where it's like, you're like,
holy shit,
dude, if you want to buy this, you want to get in Warhammer, here's a starter set. You know what's not in there? Spruce nips. You know what else isn't in there? Glue. You know what else isn't in there? Paints. You know what else isn't in there? Brushes. You know what else isn't in there? A primer. Like,
dice,
rulers, dice. Dude, the amount of book. Yeah, the fact that you have to have 22 books to play a game anymore. None of that's in there.
Well, and then like when you do get a set, like it only comes with one of the guns and you need 5 of them. So it's just like, if you play by the what you see is what you get, the WYSIWYG, like, that's a real frustrating thing if you got a lot of gun options, and where I'm very much like, it doesn't matter. They're just toys. You could play with quarters on the table. Just tell me what they are, and it'd be fucking fine for me. Like, you're not breaking my immersion because you have a bolter and not a flamer, because I don't know the difference. My eyesight isn't good enough to tell the fucking difference. So just tell me what it is and be honorable about it, and everybody's fine with it.
Huge news.
Huge.
Closing thoughts on getting into something new?
Yeah. Once you've made your decision and you've spent your money, like, you're gonna have, like, remember when I talk about the Dunning-Kruger effect, where you're like, oh, I'm getting good, like, know that there's going to be a bad time coming. like we all have fun right off the bat, but like you have to understand that just because you're having fun doesn't mean that you're good yet, and it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of effort. All hobbies do, and that's part of it. So like get in there, do the work, plow through the hard parts, and relish those mini victories where it's great. Take breaks when you hit that creative block instead of like forcing yourself. These are all topics that we've talked about over the last episodes. Like give yourself the space to enjoy it. Like I've had the concertina for a week where I played it every single day for like a half hour every day, of which I wasn't getting any better, even though mentally I understood it better. And I took like, the first like 4 days off this week, and I played it yesterday for the first time. I was like, way better than I had done at all. Like all that stuff of stewing in it and thinking about it actually paid off later on. So like, don't force it. Just enjoy it. Lean into it. It's a hobby. It's all these things should be something's fun. Nobody's putting a gun to your head. You're not actually going to you're never going to hit the dreams that you want by making your new hobby a miserable experience. So be open to the community, listen to people, join it in the way that it makes sense to you. And if you don't instantly fit that community, find another one. It's fine. There's tons of them out there. But don't square peg round hole yourself and then be mad because you didn't have a good time. Like, just you got to go with the flow. You got to get into it. You got to learn something. You're going to have to spend some money. You're going to have to spend some time, and you're going to have to be open to not being as good as you want. You have to put the time in. And once you do, you're going to be better off for it. You'll be so much more happy with what you're doing. It'll be a great time, but it takes time. Just that you have to take time with it.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah, I think I would just say find a community and make one friend, because most hobbies are better with a friend. And that's like
absolutely.
Like if you could just find one person to chat with about your hobby, that's going to make a world of difference when you're new to it and getting into it and building that relationship. And some of my best friends are people that I've just made through random hobbies and random things I've been interested in. And it's like, when you get older, it gets weird to make friends, because it's not like you're thrown in a room with people like you are in school and you find a couple people wearing the same shirt and you're like, we might have something in common. Like when you get older, you're just never near people. And well, you are, but it's like, a bunch of people in a big room and you don't know any of them. And it's just like, a hobby is a great way to make friends and build relationships. But finding that community, I think, is probably step one, if not step zero, of getting into something new.
Yeah, if there isn't a community, you're gonna find it to be much more difficult. And like I've seen communities go south. Like the chiptune community fucking like cannibalized itself. Like it woked itself into the dust. And I'm not a person who has a problem with PC content and being fucking woke. And like, I think that that's extremely important as a modern society to change with the times and understand that, people's tolerance for bullshit is going to change. But like I watched a really good community full of really, really sweet and nice people fucking devour each other, and to the point where like their main community, like they just like the dude who ran it just like shut it down. He's like, fuck this, like this is not what I started something that was good. And then I got people in who were trans. I got people in who were of color, of minority, from different countries, writing about this stuff. And like he did all this really great shit, and the community still fucking went against him because like a lot of like the chip community is trans and of like gender fluid thing, and they were like, we don't want to be ran by a guy. And he's like, well, like this is what I started, this is mine. Like and we have more people of minority, like lifestyles and alternative lifestyles here than we do of like cisgendered white people. Like that's like, you guys got it. Like, I've given you a platform. It's awesome. I love you guys. And they wanted more, and they went after him, and he like shut the fucker down. He was like, fuck this. Like, this is not what I wanted. And like, and I totally get it, because like, it wasn't fair. Like, he was like a total sweetheart, and was like their champion. And yeah, so like, sometimes your communities might disappear. Don't let that stop you from having fun with it, though. Like, I was not doing chiptune anymore, but I was still doing, like, it got me into doing electronic music. So I still talk to some of those people, and because we all got kind of out of chiptune right before it all fell apart, because like, it was becoming kind of a meme on itself. It was already a meme, and so like, once it started like turning on itself, like, we were just like, yeah, but like, we don't do like stupid video game music. We do something totally different. And we had a great time, like, still being friends, still talk to these people, even though our community is gone. And that was a really hard thing to watch, because, you're just like, there were so many people that didn't have a home before that now don't again. And nobody's filled the hole. Like, that was the thing. Like, you would think that like all this stuff, like, oh yeah, well, now you have like complete and total freedom to do it. Nobody did. Like, they just tore down the house and nobody rebuilt it. And so like, that whole community is in the wind, and that sucks. That like, and that happens. Like, that could fucking happen to Trapped Under Plastic tomorrow. Like, so all of us like Warhammer, mini painter fans who love eating chicken tendies and making jokes, that could fucking go south, and it could be gone tomorrow. So you have to like relish the time that you do, make the friends that you can, and then keep the community going on your own. If the community is the only reason you're there, maybe look at the reasons why you're doing it. You have to have some passion about it too. Like, otherwise you're just a fucking tourist in somebody else's, hobby.
True that.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah. So like, do your research, find your community, buy the shit, spend more than what you're expecting, double your budget, and be like generally nice, and then help the next person behind you, and then then tell them to help the next person behind them, because at that point you'll be tired of helping new people. Like, the community has to propagate itself. And then that's it. You'll have a great time. Like, most hobby spaces are pretty great, generally speaking.
Yeah, I agree. Nice, man. Well, what are you thankful for this week? What is going cool?
So, like, not to like downer it, but like, Mark Lanigan died. That sucks. I highly recommend, if you haven't listened to Mark Lanigan, I recommend two albums of his to check out. I really love Blues Funeral. I think it came out in like 2011, 2012. There's a song on there called St. Louis Elegy that is like one of the best songs ever written, and not just because it's about like the town that I live in. It is just like a great song. And then check out the album Bubblegum, which came out 2003, 2004. It was while I was working at a record store. It's done with all like the Queens of the Stone Age guys. So it's like basically a Queens of the Stone Age album, just like done Mark Lanigan style, and like PJ Harvey's on it. It's just like, it's fucking great album. And anybody I've shown Bubblegum to, they're just like, who is this? This is so good. I'm like, I know, it's so good. Like, it sucks that we don't have him anymore on the planet, but also he left us a lot of really good music to listen to. Mark Lanigan, Bubblegum, Blues Funeral, perfect albums. Great time.
Nice.
What about you?
My buddy just started a resin base company, and it is awesome. So I am in the middle. I tallied up my Custodes collection, and it's huge, but it's Custodes, so it's like It's not that many models, but it still's a lot. It's like about
Sure.
100, 150 models across the whole thing. But it's a 10. I have a 10,000 point army of Custodes, which once I figured out I have 10,000 points of Custodes, I feel like I have to do it because they're the 10,000. Like that's their chapter lore is there's only 10,000 Custodes. So I was like, wait, I have
Right.
10,000 points. I have to do a full army now. I have to. There's no other way around it.
Perfect.
So
if you get your 13 models on the table, it's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
It's a great army to like speed through. I dig it.
Yeah. So, previously in my Custodes collection, I have done wildly over the top basing, like buying terrain sets, cutting out chunks of it, like building stairs, like the craziest shit ever. And I tallied it up and I'm like, dude, I would have to do that 150 times and I'm not going to do that. So I was like, I want a nice looking bases across the army. I'm familiar with resin bases. I've personally got myself a 3D printer. I can print them. But he started this company and his bases are fantastic. So I just put in a huge order from him, but his company's called Lords and Lances. He's got a shop on Etsy.
Lords and Lances.
Yeah.
Excellent.
But they're really cool bases. So I actually just picked up the order yesterday, which is going to help me really get my army done. I have a tournament in like 2 weeks. So that's going to help me basically not have to worry about basing. I just have to worry about painting it and I can hammer out bases. So like not having to think about building them, making custom ones, running my own printer. Cause right now I haven't even ran it in like a week or 2 weeks because I've been gone.
Sure.
But my printer basically just runs. I just print stuff for other people at this point. So it's nice to just be able to just have him just make a bunch of resin bases for me and they're sweet. So I love his designs and it was awesome. Nice to support a friend's business and get a good product in return. So very thankful for that.
Lords
It's going to
and
save me a ton of time.
Dude, that's awesome. Well, and bases are like, I love doing bases because like it is so easy to paint a base.
Oh
Like
yeah.
they take almost no effort. Like you just have to like get paint on them in the direct, like in an area that kind of looks like the stuff that it is. You don't even have to be like careful with it because like you hit it with a wash or something, you grime it up, you make it because your model should be the main focus. This thing suddenly that falls into the background makes your like model painting better. Like that's the shit, man. I love getting into a project like that is just like benefits from you having fun with it.
Yeah. So that's it. That's what I'm stoked about right now.
Awesome. I love it. Well, thank you very much, everybody. We did it. This is not a cursed episode.
Non-cursed.
Non-cursed. Still early, but doable. Like we got the rest of the day left. It's a beautiful Friday.
Yeah.
Let's go out there and enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, it's been real. Everybody like, follow, subscribe, tell your friends, do something wholesome.
Yes.
And find something new to do. Get into something new. It's good for you.
Try something new.
Yeah.
Have fun with it. Meet a new person. Like the echo chamber gets a little claustrophobic sometimes. Find a new one.
Yeah.
Go hang out with some new people. It's good. All right, buddy.